The Tekken franchise is a series of games I'm still relatively new to from a gameplay perspective. I'm more than aware and relatively studied on the game's bizarre lore. This is Daddy Issues, the fighting game series. I was first introduced to Tekken in 2021 when Kazuya Mishima was released for Super Smash Bros Ultimate, the fourth and final traditional fighting game character to make a playable appearance next to Ryu, Ken, and Terry Bogard. You can consider me surprised when he was dropping Nintendo characters off a cliff. I had no idea what he was about, and my god did I ever learn that shit the hard way. He is insanely annoying to deal with in Ultimate, and to think it gets 15 times more complicated when you actually play a Tekken game. I made my true Tekken debut with this most recent installment at the time, Tekken 7. I played it for the first time without actually knowing it was Tekken way before Kazuya was announced for Smash. I remember playing Devil Jin, Armor King, Bob, and Negan, so that was a great way to introduce myself to the franchise, wasn't it? Many months later, I bought the game for myself, got all the DLC, and no, I did not pay $2 for frame data. I'm not that insane. I played Tekken 7 during this last year from April 2023 to January 2024. I had no idea what the hell I was doing, so I looked up a bunch of character guides to figure out who was quote unquote easy to play and then went from there. I played a variety of characters like I usually do in fighting games, but this was mainly because I didn't know enough about each character to commit to a smaller number. By the time Tekken 8 released, in Tekken 7 I played Anna, Asuka, Claudio, Dragunov, Falconrom, Josie, Katarina, Kunimitsu, and Master Raven. I tried to add Geese, Akuma, Horang, and Steve to the squad, but it was way too late for me to get used to them like I did the former characters. My overall experience with Tekken 7 was super empty and forced. I go back to it every now and again as it was a fun time, but I think because Tekken 8 was getting hyped up to hell, I feel like I wasn't able to completely enjoy and learn while going into Tekken 8. So during this limited Tekken 7 era of mine, I didn't know that Tekken 8 was teased during EVO 2022, but I eventually found out and jumped on the hype train. I was watching a ton of Tekken 7 content and playing the game as much as I could. I was also learning a lot about the series characters and the lore just to get a better idea of who the fuck these people are and why two bears are karate professionals. Soon I would see myself following the rollout for this game, including keeping up with the roster that's being built until the base roster got leaked. I actually didn't know about the leaked roster, so my reactions to these characters were genuine. It was until about the game was 2 weeks away from releasing that I learned about the roster leak. I'm gonna be straight up with you. If you data mine or leak information about video games, you're a terrible person. So Tekken 8 released worldwide on the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series consoles, and Steam on January 26th, 2024. Now I would go into the different sides of the overall reception for this game, but this video is about me and me alone, so let's move along. Now, the biggest decision for any fighting game player: what character to commit most of my time learning and losing with? Well, Tekken 8's base roster is somewhat problematic in my opinion, mainly due to other characters that aren't here being better options for the characters that are here. First things first, why is Eddie not here? That man is a Tekken icon and has always been a part of the base roster since his Tekken 3 debut. This alone led to a lot of understandable questions with how this roster was built. We got Shaheen as a base roster character instead of Eddie. Do I need to say more? Arguably the most boring character in the whole franchise. I don't even think it's close. The overall concern for this game was widespread in my mind, but from my overall experience with certain characters in Tekken 7, I came to my decision to pick up Azucena and Claudio as my first two characters of Tekken 8. I had other characters I at least wanted to give a fair chance when I got a grasp of Azu and Claudio. I played Nina in the demo because I played her for about 2 hours in Tekken 7. Granted, I prefer her sister Anna, but we'll get to her when I talk about Season 2. I had very limited experience with Dragunov in 7, and once I figured out that he was super stupid in the worst ways in Tekken 8, I knew I had enough dignity and integrity not to become a tier whore. I dabbled in Lily for about a week because I thought I got the hang of taking control of stances in this game, what moves went into said stance, and what my options are, but I just never adapted to her overall gameplay, and I compared it a lot to Azucena, so I really wasn't able to make as much progress as I wanted to, so I eventually dropped her. I also fuck around with Steve, June, Lee, and Zafina when I'm playing with the homies for the funnies. I'm not good with any of them, I just play them because why not? I tried learning Jun and Zafina, but I couldn't commit. I'm not gonna lie, I got stance overload when I already gotten the hang of my main character, who is relatively stance reliant. The next character I actually committed to learning and picked up was Asuka. She's one of the easiest characters to play, and I believe I've played against her enough to figure out what works and other combos I can pull off, so she didn't take as much time to learn as Azu or Claudio. So this is my trio, and progress is being made. I'm getting more satisfying results, and I'm having fun too. Tekken 8 and fun don't really belong in the same sentence, but here we are. Now, while we're still talking about characters, there is one name that is the epitome of if you can't beat them, join them. That phrase fits with nearly every character in the game depending on who you are as a player. This is my confessional, I almost became a full-on Jin player. Yeah, I just want to jump into a coffin just thinking about it. I decided one day that I wanted to expand my personal roster of characters and add a new face to my arsenal. I had already tried with some characters and didn't commit like I wanted to, but while taking a look at the roster, I saw Jin and knew he was insanely easy to learn and the results would be very consistent in a good way. Well, I went on to learn Jin for about 3 days and figured out his bullshit. I then never picked him up again, and I'm not going to anytime soon. I'm not a fan of his overall character in the story, regardless of his cool moments, and he's one of my least favorite characters to play against. There's Smash Bros Ultimate DLC Pack 2 and Tekken 8 Jin. I don't know what's more annoying, and I believe that's saying a ton. Considering this is a fighting game, there are bound to be characters I despise. There's a difference between bad matchups where you have a disadvantage or an overall skill issue, but here I'm talking about Kendrick Lamar levels of hatred. Super Smash Bros Ultimate, Pyra, Steve, Pikachu and Snake, Street Fighter 6, Guile, Ken, E Honda, just some examples. Tekken 8. Good lord, Tekken 8. Most of the characters have something that pisses me off, but this tier is exclusive to the ultimate hate. Jin, Dragunov, Kazuya, King, Law, Lars, Xiaoyu, Hwoarang, Alyssa, the Bears, and Yoshimitsu. I'm surprised I didn't put Victor on here, but he barely doesn't make it because I don't fight him as often as these other characters. I understand the Bears are a straight up knowledge check, but holy shit, I can't stand them. And to think, it gets worse with 2 DLC characters. Some of these characters you can argue are most likely just skill issues on my part. I'm willing to admit that. For me, it's mainly around Xiaoyu. You just have to let her up. But my god, whenever I see those other characters, I could just feel myself turning red, and as a skeleton that should be impossible. But my overall mentality throughout season 1 of Tekken 8 was, for the lack of a better word, toxic. Not in the way that I key charge, teabag, or dance on my opponents. That only happens if I believe they truly deserve it, but I manage to keep that in 99% of the time. I'm talking about the toxic mentality where I become my own worst enemy. I'll be honest, it got really bad. Luckily, I've had time to reflect and take a break from Tekken for about 2 months or so, and I'm ready to go into season 2 as a new player with a better mentality. I believe I have reformed for the better as a player. But let's move on before we conclude everything. There's a lot more to be said here. So the DLC era of Tekken 8 started as soon as the game came out when they announced that Eddie Gordo would become the first DLC character. I felt like it was super obvious considering that fans thought he was a lock for the base roster like he should have been, but once we got the confirmation that he wasn't, there was no way he wouldn't be one of the first DLC characters. I had a hard time with Eddie when he was released because I had no idea how to deal with his stances. That man is all over the place. My first ever set with him was insanely stressful, but somehow I came out winning. I've had my fair share of consistent troubles with Eddie, but I still don't think I fought against him enough to get a true idea of whether or not I actually despise him, so I'll let him off the hook for now. The next DLC character is a top 3 favorite female Tekken character, the beautiful Prime Minister of Poland, Lydia Sobieska. I definitely prefer her style of karate over Jin's, 100%. I got a better feel for her stances than I did Lily, Jin, Zafina, and June. She's my third option because I never played Asuka as much as I wanted to, but I do get to her when I can. So after a nice climb with Lydia, it's time to go back to hell with a very controversial DLC character in Heihachi Mishima. Let's be real here. Tekken 7's story should have been the end of Heihachi. It's time to focus on Jin and Kazuya. Well, despite that being true, out of the shadows, something happened to Heihachi. His presence lingers because he didn't actually die, because of course he didn't. I'll go deeper into both story modes later, but I personally don't like the idea of how Heihachi comes back or the fact that he's still alive now. This isn't his time to shine because we got other Mishimas to worry about. Now in terms of gameplay, I fucking hate Heihachi. Warrior's Instinct is stupid strong for no goddamn reason. He shouldn't be able to get a full combo off a hell sweep, and his new stance shouldn't exist. Heihachi is egregious in this game. I can't stress that enough. He broke me in so many different ways that I can't even fathom. All of the new shit he got in his repertoire destroyed me, although that's about to be elevated to a 10 with the next character. To the fans of Final Fantasy and Tekken, we did not get Tifa. I hate it here as much as you do as a fan of Tekken and Tifa. Clive Rossfield pisses me the f off. I do believe he's the next best option for a guest character after Tifa, and I'm happy that he's here as a representative of Final Fantasy. That's fine because that's just an overall concept. I hate what he stands for in Tekken 8 as a playable character. Just bring a bunch of magical weapons and a wolf companion to the world of Tekken. Why fucking not? It's Noctis and Victor's demon child. He put me over the edge in the worst ways possible, so I'm not gonna waste any more time on this waste of space of a DLC character. Overall, I have very mixed views on the DLC characters, as you can tell. I love Lydia and I'm cool with Eddie, and I've considered picking him up, but I still don't know. I just can't with Heihachi and Clive. Add them to my hate list, they deserve it. Okay, now that my crash out is officially over, let's talk about the stories. The base game's Dark Awakens and the DLC's Unforgotten Echoes. Tekken's overall narrative has an A plot focused on the Mishima family, the B plot focusing around characters that have had their lives altered by one or multiple Mishimas, and the C plot with other characters interacting. These are usually showcased through a pure story mode or as character endings through arcade mode. Granted, the arcade endings are inconsistent because some are canon to the Tekken timeline while others aren't. But let's go over the Dark Awakens first. This plot follows Jin Kazama. He's kind of fresh off his pedestal after he started World War III. He's clearly full of regret as he's had time to come to terms with what he's done. In the past, he did everything he could to be nothing like his father and grandfather, actively going against them, but then Tekken 6 happened. Now he's on the path of redemption and trying to clean himself of his past sins. On the other side, Kazuya is seeking the ultimate power, wanting to hold the world within his grasp. Not only does Jin have to stop him no matter what, but he also has to find answers to redeem himself for his past actions. That's the A story, father versus son, the fate of the world at stake. The B story is Lars and the Tekken Force versus Kazuya's G Corporation. Yeah, there's an ongoing Tekken war. It's been going on since Tekken 6. I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong. The Tekken Force teams up with Victor and his army to take on Kazuya's corporation. The C plot is a lot more grounded to me, and that's Jin versus himself. Jin inherited the devil gene, and his devil isn't like his father's. Kazuya can go into his devil form whenever he wants, and he's still the same character. But for Jin, it's a different set of circumstances. Whenever the devil awakens in Jin, there's a clear difference between both characters, as Devil Jin straight up takes over Jin's body and runs amok. He wants nothing but to cause chaos and destruction all around him. Jin does everything he can throughout this story to keep the devil within, but there are a few instances where he's pushed over the edge. The first fight against Kazuya in the city, his boyfriend able to push him to his limit during the qualifiers for the King of Iron Fist tournament, just some examples. Eventually, Jin has a straight up Persona 4 moment where he finally comes to accept that Devil Jin is a part of him as a person. But unlike Persona 4, he still goes on to get rid of the whole devil gene, which means no more Devil Jin, so he accepted that part of his life just for it to completely disappear and no longer having to deal with the awakening. Unless they retcon Jin and Kazuya's devil forms for Tekken 9, God knows why they would do that after establishing this. Jin also gets certain messages from his mother Jun Kazama. She plays the role as Jin's guide throughout the story. I think it makes sense because she wants the best for both Jin and Kazuya. Obviously that didn't happen for either of them, so by the end of the story we have no idea where Tekken is gonna go from here. Although the devil gene isn't completely gone. Yeah, Kazuya and Jin no longer have access to those forms, but there's a mysterious character who totally doesn't have Mishima blood. Yeah, they painted out Reina to be the next big villain of Tekken. In the campaign, she travels around with Jin and the Tekken Force, then fights Kazuya for the first time after he gains Azazel's power, becoming true Devil Kazuya. She gets an idea of how powerful the Mishima family can be with or without the devil gene. Heihachi is a great example of that because he doesn't have the devil gene and yet he's one of the more powerful characters in the lore. But other than her one-on-one against Kazuya, she doesn't really do all that much afterwards, until the end of the story where we get a teaser of her devil form. It's not really all that surprising. I'm just curious how they're gonna portray her in the future. Anyway, overall I enjoyed this story. I hate Jin though. I like that he wants to redeem himself, but how he carries himself throughout the story just rubs me the wrong way. He's lost all the edge from Tekken 7 for me, and that's what made him really cool as a character. I'm not saying he has to be completely like his Tekken 6 or Tekken 7 counterpart, I just want him to have a little bit of that edge. But for me, all of that is completely gone, and it's super lame. Although there are a lot of moments I enjoyed. Jin and Kazuya's first fight at Urban Square. I love the setting being full of destruction. I do wish this was a playable variation in the rest of the game, hopefully in the future. The King of Iron Fist tournament at the Coliseum of Fate was fun. I like that you get to play through the whole tournament and pick whatever character you want per round. I think that's really cool. Kazuya versus Azazel was a big surprise I was not expecting, and as not a Kazuya player, this did take a few attempts, but it was cool regardless. Lars versus True Devil Kazuya, the whole Tekken Force coming back as a temporary game mode. It's nice to see it come back even if it is through the story mode. We would definitely benefit from it being its own game mode for online and offline play. Angel Jin versus True Devil Kazuya is peak cinema, and I love the final fight on Fall of Destiny. Those moments carry the whole story for me. Overall, I give The Dark Awakens a nice 7 out of 10. It's solid all around. The action is great, the cutscenes look amazing. The only downsides for me is Jin's overall character, Reina not doing all that much after fighting Kazuya. I know this is centered around Jin and Kazuya, but I do feel like she should have some stakes in this narrative considering she dons Mishima blood. Also, this doesn't have anything to do with my overall rating, but it's very taxing to me. Xiaoyu is your stereotypical anime love interest. She's not all that interesting, but I will give her this. She does have a cool moment where she fights off a wave of jacks, so I'll give her that. Now let's move on to the first and most likely last story in Tekken 8. The DLC story that came with Heihachi, The Unforgotten Echoes. Centered around Eddie Gordo, Lydia Sobieska, and Heihachi Mishima. I think Lydia and Eddie as characters carry this whole narrative. They're both insanely badass in their own ways. Eddie versus Nina and Lydia versus Reina being my highlights. Then we get to Heihachi. Good lord. Oh my god, I accidentally wrote down in Tekken 7, Kazuya finally defeats Kazuya and throws him off a cliff into a volcano. Oh god. My bad. So in Tekken 7, Kazuya finally defeats Heihachi and throws him off a cliff into a volcano, and he was supposed to be dead forever. And then the Tekken 8 Fall DLC happened. Apparently, some random guy saved Heihachi from near death, and when he came to, amnesia is the name of the game. He then goes on to learn Mishima-style karate to try to reform himself. You would think this is a completely new Heihachi, ready to take on the world for the greater good, but unfortunately, due to a strange set of circumstances, he regains all of his memories, and he's back to his usual self. I do like the moment where he claims that he is Heihachi, officially back as himself. I do think that's a cool scene, but that's pretty much it. He goes on and defeats Eddie, Lydia, and Yoshimitsu, who's also here for some reason. Now he's ready to find Kazuya and take care of him. Little does he know, Kazuya is sorta kinda occupied right now, being unconscious and not being able to go into his devil form, which Heihachi would most likely be happy about, but I don't know if he knows that Reina exists. I don't know anymore, dude. This campaign felt very lackluster and a cop-out just to bring back Heihachi instead of keeping him dead for good this time. His overall appearance doesn't feel natural or deserved to me. It's super obvious that he wasn't going to stay humble or grounded throughout the story. Whether intentional or not, he was gonna become the true Heihachi Mishima no matter what, and now we have to wait God knows how long for the next DLC story. Unforgotten Echoes gets a 5 out of 10 for me. It just doesn't feel satisfying, especially since it's very short and left on a cliffhanger. So season 1 of Tekken 8 was the most insane roller coaster that I've experienced following a fighting game's development and being a part of its community. I haven't felt this way since Super Smash Bros Ultimate. Very mixed feelings though. On one hand, I felt that satisfaction of learning the ins and outs of the gameplay and my characters, being able to enhance my skill set and take what I learned into battle against actual players. Obviously these things take time, but I definitely say I've improved a lot from when I started. I'm still hot garbage at this game, but I believe I can hold my own in a way. A lot of matchups either annoy me to all hell or just don't go my way, but adaptability is a nice skill to have in any fighting game. Although this leads me to the other hand, Tekken 8's definition of adaptability is a lot different from past games. The heat system needs a ton of reworking. It's way too strong for its own good as the most unique Tekken mechanic we've seen. No other Tekken game that I know of has anything like this. It takes away most of the depth that Tekken has been known for the last 3 decades. I wish there was a way to just turn it off and play normal Tekken. Luckily I can go back to Tekken 7 and go through the fundamentals that have been established for years. Unfortunately, those fundamentals don't transfer all that well to Tekken 8. By the looks of season 2, yeah, no, that's not happening. So many characters in season 1 were extremely problematic. Even when some got nerfed, there was something else to bitch about. My most problematic characters in season 1 1 were Jin, Dragunov, Heihachi, Clive, Yoshimitsu, Law, the Bears, King, and later on as the season was coming to an end, Brian and Lee. As of now, Season 2 of Tekken 8 has become a complete dumpster fire, and I wouldn't be surprised if hardly anyone tunes in for the Tekken World Tour considering how Season 2 made its debut. Season 1 may have had its issues, but at least there were some redeeming qualities. The depth was still there, but you would have to search for it, and at least you can find it. In Season 2, so far, all that depth is gone. I do believe that there's a good ending to this. It just all depends on what the developers do. But I guess we'll find out by the time Season 3 gets here. I just hope we don't get Marduk, because in this system, he will kill this game. Apparently, some random guy saved Heihachi from death, and when it... Oh god, okay, alright. Oh my god. Okay, bad time to record apparently. Fucking hiccups, Jesus Christ.